Hello and welcome to this latest episode of Church Chat. Today we're delighted to welcome for the first time into our newly built studio our local bishop, Bishop Joseph Toole. So, welcome Bishop Toole to the new studio for the first time. It's a pleasure to have you here. So how have you been?
How have I been? Oh, well, I've been quite well, thank you, and just been doing various things during Lent, and last year I was lucky enough to visit Salamanca, and we went to visit the Royal Scots College there and to see those that are in the propedeutic period there in preparation for going to senior seminary.
Of course, it's a very positive time for the diocese because you've seen yourself 7 ordinations during your time as Bishop of Motherwell and 2 final professions of 2 women. To looking back on this time, these last few years, and the sort of increase we've seen in vocations to religious life and the priesthood, what would you credit this rise to?
To be fair, most of the people that have been ordained into the priesthood since I came here began their preparation or formation before I came, so I can't say that there's much credit to me personally, but I did find that when I came to the diocese I was very blessed to have a number of seminarians, and of course 7 of them have been ordained in the 5 years I've been here as bishop, and it's been a wonderful experience to have that opportunity to ordain these men as priests, and also, as you mentioned, to be present at the final professions of the two women from the diocese who are members of religious orders. So what does it come from, or why is there vocations here? I think there's perhaps still quite a traditional Catholic community here, and there's quite involvement of people in the life of the church in many areas, and sometimes young people have been inspired by either the life of their own parish, or when they've gone on a pilgrimage to Lourdes, it's often been a catalyst for them thinking about vocation and responding to God's call. Or some of them are older and have found their way to God after doing various things, and they've finally decided that would be where they would want to spend the rest of their lives. So I think too that there must be a spirit of prayer in the diocese where there's many people praying for vocations, and I hear this when I visit parishes. Vocations are often mentioned and prayed for, and some people have holy hours or periods of exposition before the Blessed Sacrament where they pray in particular for this intention, and well, prayers bear fruit in this way in the diocese, and we're looking forward to others being ordained this summer, and then we have a number of other men in seminary at present too, so there's some more coming forward as well for ordination in the future too.
It's very positive, but it's also interesting in that we're seeing this rise where it's against the backdrop of almost like you feel there's a pinch in the numbers of Catholics who are attending Mass regularly. Parishes are diminishing in numbers in some cases, in some places, and it seems that people are almost not having as much children, getting as married as much, and maybe even, not seeing the importance in sacraments. So what do you think, why do you think this is the case, that people are following this trend, we're seeing this decline?
Well, I think there's in the Western world there's been quite a steep decline in many ways in religious practice, and I think that's affected the Catholics too, and some people have been discouraged too in the church by the scandals that we've had in recent times, and they've given up the practice of the faith. But even without that, I think the trend was towards people kind of showing, many people, not everybody, showing sort of less commitment in a way to the sort of constant ongoing practice of the faith. You still sense that people like a bit of religion in their lives and on special occasions, and those that have been brought up as Catholics obviously would turn to the church in times like that for celebration or moments of sadness too. They still have that connection with the church, but the sort of regular practice and of the faith isn't as strong. And I don't know, maybe the distractions of the modern life have deadened people's awareness or openness to God and the need for God in their lives. And I think too, you know, it's a part of today's world is we've got so much now, and there's I think the sense that we can save ourselves, you know. And I think, you know, the truth is in our faith we believe that we need God's salvation, and that's given to us in our Lord Jesus Christ and through his death and resurrection, and that's what we celebrate in all the sacraments too. And you know, it's that the need for the sacraments and their purpose in our lives is not seen so clearly by people, because they think they can do it themselves a bit. You know, they don't need this aspect of life. So, which is sad from our point of view, because our faith gives more to us than we put into it. So we get a great consolation from our faith, and we enjoy the practice of our faith, and we feel the grace of the sacraments when we receive them, and it gives us a hope too of something beyond this life, you know. Sometimes in the world too you feel that, especially with younger people, that there's an element of despair and no hope. And you know, maybe we have to try harder to pass on the gift of faith to them and celebrate it in our homes and in our churches, and allow them to be part of that celebration of faith. Because
it's interesting, we're seeing almost a trend towards Catholics and others as well choosing humanist celebrations. For whatever reason, they seem to prefer the bespoke nature of it. Do you think that, as you alluded to there, that maybe families, priests and teachers in schools can maybe do a better job of trying to promote why sacraments such as baptism is vital, why a Catholic marriage is vital, why a Requiem Mass is vital, for example? What would your thoughts be in that?
I think obviously we as priests or ordained ministers, we've a task to preach the fullness of the faith and to encourage people to see importance in their lives. And I'm sure we try to do that to the best of our ability. And it's not, I don't know why people are less responsive then to wanting to take that into their own lives and their own homes. It seems to be that at times people, as I said earlier, kind of enjoy the big moments, as it were, but then the sort of ongoing practice of going to Mass and receiving the sacraments doesn't seem to carry the same weight as it perhaps did in people's lives before. I think all of us are encouraged constantly, when we have the responsibility to preach the gospel and the mysteries of our faith and to celebrate the mysteries of our faith, to pass on them on in as fullest way as possible to the younger generations. From my own experience of life, I think, you know, the home is where people would pick up the habit of faith and the enjoyment of faith and the prayer life, and then moving from the home into the church, where we celebrate with other people and we actually receive the sacraments there. So that's for me is what I experienced as a child, and I think that's basically the way I would think that faith is handed on. So the school then plays a part too, but the school can only do its bit in the sense of teaching and trying to explain the faith to the pupils. But if they don't have the life of faith and within themselves, and you know, through the experience of what they received and from their own family and have celebrated with the bigger family of the church, it's hard for schools to fill all the gaps, you know. And sometimes I think people just expect them to do so, and they get the blame when it's not. They're only trying to do their best at their level. and it's they need people to really believe and to want to have faith, and as well as sort of expecting schools to provide the catechetical element to the faith.
I mean, it is interesting because you're talking about, we have this sort of perception that the older generations maybe perhaps knew their faith better than the modern generation, but we're looking at a kind of recent example for yourself. You put out a letter to your priests for a directive regarding how Requiem Masses are celebrated in our church, and it seems that the secular press took that in some way and spun it to sort of pitch our Requiem Mass against a humanist celebration. Unfortunately, some of the headlines were a bit misleading. They were sort of portraying yourself as banning poems and readings and spinning it into some sort of negative headline, which it really wasn't. There's also, it seemed that a lot of the Catholics who were maybe commentating and engaging in this weren't fully understanding as well, or it seemed that they weren't fully understanding what we believe the purpose of a Requiem Mass is. So what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I get some, you get emails or letters at times where people make comments about funerals and how the funeral was celebrated, or the priest didn't allow them to do this or that. And obviously it's a time of emotion and in people's lives, and therefore they're very sensitive to what's said or not said, what allowed to do, not allowed to do. So in some ways I just wanted to kind of reassure the priests and to say, well, this, and it was particularly in regard to what they say themselves and what other people say at the funeral or Requiem Mass. So I was trying to emphasise the purpose of the homily at the Mass, where it's to be the proclamation of the Lord's resurrection, and to encourage the hope and belief of the congregation in that, and then the offering of the Mass itself is for the eternal repose of the soul of the deceased, and that's why that's what we do at the Requiem Mass, and that's the purpose of it. Therefore, the other things that sometimes we add importance to, of our own input or what people want to express about the deceased, are really quite maybe secondary in our understanding to the elements of the Requiem Mass itself and what it says to us. And I always think that's important to say that we're there, not only in that occasion, but always when we're there to listen to God, and maybe not and to pray to God. And therefore it's, the extras we add in sometimes can distract from the central purpose of what we're doing. I also think that that there's a great our funeral Mass is a very uplifting experience, I think, for most people who come to a Catholic funeral, because it is a great proclamation of faith and eternal life, and it is very much centred in the person that is being buried that day or cremated, as whatever it may be. And the Mass is celebrated when there is Mass in the church beforehand, and the prayers of the Mass and the other funeral rites often mention the person themselves. So it's a prayer of intercession on our behalf for the eternal repose of that particular person. I was counting there, and I think it's about 10 times the person's name is said during the Mass and the rite of committal, and then at the graveside, maybe even more than that when we add in prayers for the faithful as well. So there's a lot of personal touch there in the actual liturgy and prayers of the church, and in some ways that's enough, I think, And if people feel there has to be something more, perhaps that's the more personal setting of the family gathering and that, or rather than in the actual celebration of the Mass. Although sometimes it may be appropriate for something to be said, and I think that can be said before the Mass starts, and there's no, and maybe with a word of welcome.
So it doesn't interrupt the...
I think that the liturgy itself has its own rhythm and its own structure, and
that's interesting.
Sometimes I think the less we say, the better. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the name. So I didn't realise it was 10 times. That's quite interesting. Yeah.
So it's never. And I personally, the kind of the model for a Catholic funeral in a way was I thought was the funeral of St. John Paul II in, I think was it 2005, probably this very week actually, his funeral took place, and that was his funeral. Although there might have been music and it was a very solemn occasion, it was the same mass, the same words as everybody else got. There wasn't anything special about it in that way, and therefore he was, and that's what everybody gets, and everybody gets the same, and there's no distinction made on judgment on our part either, on who the prayers are said for the eternal rest of the person whose funeral mass we're celebrating, and that's where we stand, you know.
It's quite comforting to think about it.
I think I agree about that. That's everybody gets the same, and if there's things to be recorded or said about them, they can be done in elsewhere. But the funeral mass itself is a special moment of prayer and intercession for that particular person, and the Church listens attentively to God and says the prayers that the liturgy provides for us, and that's what counts. Yeah. You know, other things are perhaps our own attempts to put in our own bits here and there, which can help sometimes, but maybe can distract too if it's too much emphasis given to it.
No, it's fascinating, really interesting. It's stirred a good discussion. Maybe revive some people's knowledge and interest in our Catholic practices. So, but there's a lot of good news stories this year as well that are taken up. We've also got the 100 years of the Knights of St Columba, which were founded here. We've got the visit of the relics of St Therese coming, which is going to be massive in September, and also the Missionary Month, which was called by the Extraordinary Missionary Month, which was called by Pope Francis. So, what are you hoping the fruits will be of these?
I don't know. I think it's always good to celebrate special anniversaries, and as you said, the Knights of St Columba were founded in Scotland, and they've got a great presence still in this diocese and other places too. There are other organisations now that they find it quite difficult maybe to get young people to join them, but they are a great body of men, and who give lovely service and very loyal service to the Church, and since I've come down here to Motherwell, I've much appreciated their support and their goodwill towards the clergy especially, you know, and their kindness to us. So I'm very appreciative of what the Knights are and what they do in the mission of the Church. So they're a great example of the lay faithful carrying out their mission in the world, because they go out to others too, and to meet need where they see it. You know.
Because they'll be guarding the relics of St Therese as well. That's one of the roles they'll be taking up.
Okay, and I mean the relics of St Therese, the visit or the pilgrimage of the relics of St Therese is I think it will be a lovely occasion, because she's a saint that is very dear to this diocese as well, because of the link with Carfin, where the priest that was opened the grotto and was a priest there for many years, Canon Taylor, was a great devotee of St Therese, and was one of the people that actually promoted her cause for sainthood, and was very close to the convent or the monastery in Lisieux, and to St Therese's writing of the Little Way. But it's maybe the spirit of St Therese is very important for us too, because of her openness to God and to God's presence in her life, and her desire to give her life to God, and she would have loved to have gone off and been a missionary, but that she had chosen at a very young age really to enter the Carmelite monastery, and that's where her vocation in life was, and the vocation of love for the whole Church, and to express that through her prayer life. It's interesting too that St. Therese, that's like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, went through a very, although she lived a short life, and she went through a very dry period in her spiritual life where she just didn't feel the presence of God at all, which is so important for her, and she persevered in her prayer and in her desire to keep open to God, although she wasn't having the same great feelings in her heart about God's presence and that. And so that's often a trial in holy people's lives, that sometimes they experience that sort of desert or absence of God too, and then there comes a moment maybe when it comes back again. But so she's a lovely person, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to honour her relics, but also maybe to delve into the spirituality and maybe encourage people to find that sort of inner peace and love for God in their lives, which St. Therese portrayed so well.
I'm looking forward. It's going to be a fantastic few weeks, and blessed few weeks. So, but it's thanks for coming through today and a quick chat. So you're looking forward to the Holy Week and Easter coming up?
Yeah, well, I always have. I wrote a little letter today, another letter for to the people in the diocese, and I said I always look forward to Holy Week, because when I was a boy in Roybridge, when I come from, we celebrated the Holy Week services in a very full manner. Our parish priest always did everything that could be done, you know, and it was a really wonderful experience looking back, and you know, especially actually the Easter Vigil. You know, that was the high point of the year, really, you know, and it lasted a long time, but it was. I always felt since that it was nothing quite equalled even the ones I've celebrated. Probably about 2.5 to 3 hours.
I think Father Grant pushed about 2. So I hope you're a wonderful Easter.
Okay then, so happy. Thank you then. Okay, well, I wish you all, those that are watching this, a very happy Easter, and we pray that the Lord will bless you and your families and with the joy of His risen presence.
Amen.